Paul, your microphone is turned on.
Hello, good morning. Well, good morning here in Ecuador. Good afternoon there. You are in London, I guess, right? Some of the participants. So thanks for having me. My pleasure to be here. I'm seeing that people is getting in, so I'm gonna start slowly, so we can follow the ideas, because what I prepared at the beginning is probably the most important concepts, and then I will explain these concepts in relation to some of my projects. So let's do this. I'm gonna share my screen. Can you allow me to share?
Yeah, just loud.
Okay. Okay. So here it is. All right. So thank you again. I know a little bit about this program, the Digital Art Observatory. I know that the artists involved in the program have some experience in different scopes of digital art. So I'm gonna try to match or to relate the ideas during this talk to some of the topics that I've seen on the website. So today what I prepared is a presentation in relation to the idea of ecosystems and networks, how the art practice, the development of projects, artistic projects, or either, let's say, hybrid projects, because I work in the field of art and science in the relationship between different disciplines. How this practice is related to different, let's say, other worlds beyond the art world, beyond the digital world, and how it's interconnected to, for instance, the biological world. So in this context, I think in first place, we need to try to understand what is an ecosystem. So let's start by explaining this, or by talking about this. So an ecosystem, the way how I want to put it out is a geographic area where different species of, or different organisms, let's say plants, animals, or even non-human organisms, let's say in general, as well as weather, the landscape, work together, collaborate, let's say, to form a bubble of life, let's say. Or an ecosystem as well is part of bigger systems in which there's biotic and abiotic factors. Biotic factors includes plants, animals, organisms as microorganisms, and abiotic factors include what we think as passive organisms, probably rocks. Even when rocks sometimes are taken as inorganic, or something that is not a living organism, but that is something that we can reflect on, and we can talk further, because we can think in rocks in terms of a host of different organisms that are completely alive, like moss, lichens, etc. But in general terms, rocks and temperature of humidity, for instance, are taken as abiotic factors. So, like a change of congruence, it's there's the ecosystem that also depends on other kind of factors. Within an ecosystem, these different factors are interconnected, are interdependent, are coexist in order to make life happen. So, for instance, a change in temperature, as we know, for instance, a change in water temperature, or a change in the temperature of air, affect directly to different plants, or in the case of water, affects to sessile animals, let's say corals, and this affects to other organisms that are connected to those. For instance, in the case of plants, this affect to animals that eat these plants. What is the affection, or what is the outcome of this, is that these animals have to migrate to try to find food and shelter in other places, and in this sense, this ecosystem gets affected. So, more or less, what we can do, what we can see, is that an ecosystem can be a small or a big bubble of life, in which there's different organisms interacting each other, interdependent, collaborating in a sometimes symbiotic way, or in a mutualistic way. Now let's talk a little bit about how this idea gets connected to the human, right, or to people. Let's say to human culture. So in this graphic, we have the representation, let's say, of the planet Earth, in which there's a big number of ecosystems, right? Ecosystems are part of something bigger that is called biome. Biomes are can be, let's say, forests, can be ponds, can be reefs, or tundra. I'm gonna talk in this presentation a little bit about forests and a little bit about reefs that these biomes have to do with some of my projects. And we can say that these forests in these biomes, we can find different ecosystems within the same biome. So in this representation, we can see like the big circle, the big sphere, like the Greek one, as the planet. And biomes we can see in these other circles, and different ecosystems in different sizes within the same biomes. So people are totally dependent on this, on the products, on the goods that these ecosystems can offer, and not really vice versa. You know, we can say that people are dependent to plants, and not plants are dependent to people, right? They can live without us, in general terms. So let's see this chain here. So the ecosystems as well are at the same time they're part of biomes. Biomes are connecting, are grouping different ecosystems, and people are living in independence to these ecosystems, right? As an outcome of human activity, of human-made practice, we have culture, and as part of culture, we have art in different ways, right? It can be digital art, it can be physical art, it can be any kind of combination of these different practices, but anything human-made, let's say, what is technology, what is needed to produce digital art in these terms, let's say computers, let's say microchips, let's say video processors, etc. It's part of what we can mention as human-made, or what is culture, basically, right? At the same time, these artifacts or these devices are part of something smaller that we can say as applied science, or something closer to engineering, right? So in the sense of a project that I'm gonna present right now, I'm gonna approach the idea of a forest as part of a biome, bigger. And this forest is located in the Amazon River, around the Amazon River in South America, and usually known as tropical rainforest. So this tropical rainforest is composed by canopies, let's say the upper part of the trees, understories, let's say what is in between the floor and the canopy, where most of the animals like monkeys live, for instance, where they can find fruits and they can eat other kind of animals and insects, for instance. And what is the forest floors? Forest floors is what is attached to the soil, and where most of the flowers appear, and also what is connected to the underground, right? So in these different levels of the tropical rainforest, there's a vast food webs that are interconnected in a network that we're going to explain from the perspective of actor network theory, and beyond that, the idea of material semiotics. So I'm gonna show a little bit about this project related to the tropical rainforest. This is a project in which I've been working for the last 4 or 5 years. Well, here in 2018, we went to a scientific research station called Tiputini, nearby the Tiputini River. This is a station run by my university, the university where I work, the Universidad San Francisco de Quito. And there's different places to conduct research. So one of these spaces is an observatory, an upper observatory, where you can see the canopy, the upper level. So in this place, I developed a project based on a story that happened in the 90s, where a photographer, a cinematographer, German cinematographer, Dieter Plasch, was filming a documentary on the canopy of the rainforest in Guyana. To do this, he developed, along with an engineer, aeronautical engineer, a British aeronautical engineer, a hot air balloon in order to fly over the canopy and use this camera, this big camera, filming camera, to shot and document this very special part of the forest. So we are talking before the general or the popular use of drones. That's why they use this mechanism and this big vehicle to shot this movie. So I'm gonna change the presentation to show more pictures about this. So this project is called El Pensamiento de las Plantas, or How Plants Think. The idea with this project is to try to develop a non-human point of view from the idea of creativity. I'm using this story to try to recreate this story from the perspective of trees that witnessed this moment when Dieter Plage was shooting the documentary, and at some point got entangled, got trapped with one of these trees. He tried to fix the problem, and suddenly he fell down and passed away. So this was like a big issue. He was a famous documentary cinematographer, filmmaker, and the news just spread around the world. So what happened is that the engineer got some sort of affected, or because he developed the balloon, and the balloon got in this problem finally. No, so what I did in this project, it was trying to recreate, or trying to produce a series of photographs, not from my point of view, but rather from the point of view of the trees. So this idea is related to notions of neurobiology of plants, with notions of non-human photography as well. In London, there's a zoo in which in the tropical forest, rainforest part of the exhibition, they develop a small camera that is fed by the waste of the plant itself in these biocells. So the small camera get charged by using this bioenergy, and when it's charged, take a picture of the tree to which is attached. So they call it like a plant selfie, a non-human selfie. So I've been like researching in this kind of practice, and this project is related to those practice, and as well to this story. So instead of just using these theories of this research, I try to match the research within this story of the death of Dieter Plage. So here I'm gonna show some of the pictures that are produced based on this idea, trying to imagine, or trying to explore how will be the view of a non-human entity. This is also based on different research, like how other animals are able to see, how plants are sentient organisms, etc. In this case, for instance, is the representation of the approximation of the falling, the moment when the Dieter Plage was falling. And these other ones are also like the counterpart, like the counter pictures, like how in this case the object subject of study is seeing the scientist or the researcher in this case. I'm talking about scientist or researcher because this artist was involved deeply in biology and in conservation. So he was in the 50s and the 60s, very important in terms of showing the world different environments and landscapes of keeping these places and landscapes for the human, for being of the relationship between humankind and the planet. Also part of the project is this replica scale down of the hot air balloon that was produced and designed especially for this purpose, especially to shoot this documentary, and it was designed only for one person. That's why Dieter was the only one shooting, and he had to do this try to fix the problem, to untangle the balloon, and he got in the accident. So what I want to explain from this point on is the different topics and the different materials, the different decisions that were taken in the production of this kind of project. And here we go to the idea of material semiotics. So here you're gonna see a few fragments, a few parts of texts, especially from Bruno Latour, related to this article on actor network theory, and also about material semiotics, that is something that comes later after the theory, right? So let's try to explain first the idea of on actor network theory. So actor network theory is a change of metaphors to describe essences. Instead of surfaces, one gets filaments or rhizomes in the less parlance. More precisely, it's a change of topology. Instead of thinking in terms of surfaces, 2 dimensions, or spheres, 3 dimensions, one is asked to think in terms of nodes that have as many dimensions as they have connections. When we see actor network theory, it used to attach to the idea of social theory. In these terms, like as a general definition, you can find that actor network theory is a theoretical or a methodological approach to social theory where everything in the social and natural worlds exists in constantly shifting networks of relationships. It posits that nothing exists outside those relationships. Okay, this is somehow what we're going to approach, but not precisely what we want to say. Let's keep reading some of these ideas. So a network is never bigger than another one. It is simply longer or more intensely connected. As a network, we can think not only the network as the internet, for instance, but also the network that is interconnecting our brain hemispheres. The synapses are more intensely in different parts or are more intensely activated according to different input, according to different stimuli. So in this sense, a network is not that bigger, but is more intensely active, or is longer. Let's keep. So instead of having to choose between the local and the global view, the notion of network allows us to think of a global entity, a highly connected one, which nevertheless remains continuously local. An actor in the actor network theory is a semiotic definition, an actant. That is something that acts or to which activity is granted by others. So this is a very important point, because in this theory, actor used to be attached to the idea of the human or the individual human. And in terms of Latour, this is incorrect. This is a misunderstanding of the idea. But the actor can be anything within the network, anything that is that has some activity, and this activity is granted by others, and these others can be as well things that can be different organisms, and we as humans are part of this network. Okay, so this idea is related to semiotics in this way. No, so a toolbox to study meaning production can be this theory, and meaning as an end in itself, not as meaning in terms of communication, but something that is meaningful as something in itself, like the idea of self that is granted as well to not only humans but the other actants in this network, in this, let's say, by extension, in this ecosystem. So I'm gonna explain a little bit about this idea with the next project I'm gonna show. So extending semiotics in this sense to things instead of limiting it to meaning. So semiotics as something that have to do with not only communications in terms of language, in terms of human language, in terms of communication between pairs, but what is attached to things by themselves. So from that idea, we arrive to what exactly is material semiotics. So material semiotics is a set of tools and sensibilities for exploring how practices in the social world are moving out of threads to form webs that are simultaneously semiotic because they are relational and or they carry meanings, and material because they are about the physical stuff caught up and shaped in those relations. Okay, let's keep going. So I'm gonna explain a little bit about of these ideas in relation to our practice and project development. So I'm gonna show a project that I developed in Galapagos, in the Galapagos Island, back in the years, and that I'm still developing, let's say, in a new chapter that came out from this first experience. So what we are seeing here, it's an active volcano. This is the peak of underwater active volcano called Roca Redonda. This active volcano produces naturally CO2 bubbles coming out from seeps in different parts of the volcano. So I'm gonna show a little bit of this. Okay, so this project carried out in Galapagos is a project in which I approach this biological phenomena from twofold point of view. One is first how different people from different parts of the world arrive to the island and start inhabiting the archipelago back in the 30s, after being almost completely inhabited, but after the discovery in 1935. So what we see here is one of these first settlers coming from Germany or coming from Sweden, and they started forming these communities. So at some point in the 20s, the American biologist, marine biologist William Beef published a book titled Galapagos World's End. This was a bestseller book, and this opened the door for people to getting Galapagos as this paradisiacal, this very unknown, inhabited, almost fantastic place to try to live a life, a way of living very different than the ones that you can create in different cities, in different countries around the world. So the the book described the Galapagos as this place full of nature, full of animals, full of species, just like effervescing all over the place. And this was very attractive to different people, as I said, in people from Germany, for instance. So what I was developing in this project, in this two-folded view, is how at the same time we have people coming to inhabit the island, inland, over the water, and how at the same time, parallelly, biologically, marine biological phenomena was happening underwater. So in this case, this peak of the volcano, which is you can think in terms of island as well, is what you see and what you can, let's say, approach by boat. But if you go underwater, sorry, you can see this phenomena. The idea of this this space, this water column that is getting acidified by these CO2 bubbles that gets out from the volcanic activity, the natural volcanic activity of the place, right? So what is interesting here is that the acidification of oceans is an effect of global warming, of air pollution, more precisely. Climate change in general terms used to be taken as well, global warming as the first most notable effect. But ocean acidification is also one of the effects that happens because oceans absorb the pollution from air pollution, and gets the water in different pH, acid, and also the temperature change. So these factors affects to animals as corals, or the animals that are attached to the reef, attached to rocks, and cannot move to find different other places, as we see in the first part of the presentation. You know, when you have a change of temperatures, animal can go away and find another place, and the ecosystem get affected. In this case, these ecosystems, and talking about these species, they cannot go away and find another place. They live in this place, and they are affected directly by these phenomena. So what we're seeing here is different algae and a species of coral that were able to survive or are adapting to this change in acidification and change in temperature in this precise place. So the volcano is allowing us to see some sort of the future of what is going to happen if the contamination and the pollution of air it's keeping in the way how we know, no? So this is also I picked this project to talk about because of we just passed the COP26 in Glasgow. It's the conversation around the reductions of emissions and air pollutions and all these things are just keep going. And we know that after all these offers, after all these talks, after all this rhetoric, we are in the same problem in terms of environment. Now, so in this place, what we can see is the idea of how will be if the pollution keeps going the way we are right now, how it's currently happening. So we can see here different species that are adapting, or we can see like We can think in terms of, from the perspective of a speculation, how this will be the species of the future, how different organisms may resist to these changes, and how will be this environment, this marine environment in the future. So this is obviously interconnected, as I said before, in a network that is not a network of let's say similar organisms, but a superstructure, interrelationships, superstructured relations in terms of human and non-human worlds. So let's go back to the main presentation, and I think I'm gonna finish soon. So this is another quote from Latour's article, from Latour's text. So no explanation is stronger or more powerful than providing connections among unrelated elements or showing how one element holds many others. In this sense, as you see, I like to think that these corals, these algae that are adapting to this acidification of ocean worldwide are adapting at the same time to the behavior of humans, to human behaviors, like as humans, corals, water, volcano, algae, fish, etc., are actants within this network. Okay, and within this network, we as art producers, as artists, need to think twice when we pick or decide to choose different materials in order to produce a project. When I think in terms of digital or virtual worlds, we are also connected to those decisions, to those dilemmas in terms of energy, mostly in terms of energy, and also in terms of ideas distribution on how knowledge is shared. For instance, I think probably most of you work in digital platforms, or your work is based on the use of devices. So I think is important to ask yourself questions about how these projects, how my ideas get in places where the introduction of these devices or the use of this technology is not completely general, is not completely undertaken. So in this sense, I want to put out, to start the QA, to start the conversation with you, these ideas about how you see your work in terms of knowledge production, in terms of knowledge distribution, in terms of the use of technology, and in terms of the use of energy. So I think, seeing the time, it will be good to stop here and to probably start this conversation. Thank you.